My Heart Ministry. I'm Laura McFarland, and I want to welcome you to this edition of Martha Monday. Well, it is January, and that means it's gotten cold outside. And so when we start thinking about what to serve for dinner, we think about something warm and hearty and delicious. It's also January, and that means we've just wrapped up the holiday season. And that's a time during the year when we all tend to indulge, eat some things we don't normally eat. So usually January is the time that we sort of reboot and restart, and we try to eat a little healthier. Also January, coming just after the holiday season, that was a time when we may have exceeded our budget a little bit. So January also might be a time that we're going to rein back in the expenditures, and so we might want to try to plan our grocery budget to stretch and be a little easier on the budget. So I'm here today to share a recipe with you that sort of meets all of those goals. I'm going to be sharing one of our family's favorite soup recipes. It's actually a chili recipe. It's called white chili. White chili is delicious, it's healthy, it's low cost and low cal. This recipe, it's in my little soup binder, but it originally came from a Hope Evangelical Free Church cookbook way back in the early 90s. Before Kevin and I moved to Arkansas, we were members of Hope Evangelical Free Church in Mason, Ohio, right outside of Cincinnati. And they put together a church cookbook that was just fabulous. This is a low-cal recipe since it uses chicken instead of beef in the recipe. So if it has red meat, it usually has a little more calories, a little more fat. Chicken, always a little more healthy. So I love this recipe. I love to make soup in the winter. I love the ease of it. It stretches the budget. This recipe uses Great Northern beans, so beans are always a great source of protein. Soup sort of stretches. When the kids were all home and I was cooking for a family, I could make a big pot of soup, serve it up with some crackers or bread, and call that good. Maybe serve some veggies on the side, or maybe some fruit or something like that. Now that it's just the two of us and we're really empty nesters, soup really stretches a long way. And in fact, we sort of get tired of it before we run out of it, even one of our favorites. So I also want to share with you, before I jump into the recipe, some of the things that I use to freeze soup. I think this is Pyrex, but I'm not sure. I'll find the link for these and put that below when I publish the video. I love these little soup containers. They freeze well, they're microwavable, they come with a lid that goes on. They're the perfect way to hold soup. I got this set of 6 in 6 different colors at Sam's Club a few years ago, and they've just been fabulous. My husband likes to take these in his lunch. I can put one in the refrigerator the night before, he can grab that, and he's good to go for lunch. I think the others are currently in the freezer holding some soup. He grabbed one day back in December to take for his lunch, and he said, "What kind of soup is this?" And on that particular one I hadn't labeled, and I said, "It's soup du jour." It's just the soup of the day, and you'll find out when you warm it up, because I had no idea what was in there. Also, these are also Pyrex. They're a little bit larger, so when I freeze my soup in these containers, it's enough for a family or a meal to serve at home, so rather than an individual serving in these. So soup is a great selection for eating healthy. My white chili is not only healthy, it's easy to put together, it's easy on the budget, it freezes well, so hopefully this might be a recipe that you will want to try. I will post a link below for you to find that recipe, but for right now, let me just go ahead and share with you how we get started. It began last night. I opened up a package of it's a 2-pound package, 32 ounces of Great Northern beans. These are dried beans. They need to be soaked well to get soft before you're ready to cook them up. I usually like to do that the night before. I haven't had good luck in soaking them during the day, but leaving them overnight, so to wash them, rinse them, and you're good to go. So my beans, I dump them into a colander, and here they are all ready to go. I'm going to pull those over and just going to sort of dump them into my big pot. This is actually the pot that I used to soak them all night, and now I'm going to pull them all, pour them all in here, and be ready to go. The recipe, I realized, for the beans called for me to cover them with 6 cups of chicken broth. Well, I realized I only had beef stock in my pantry and no chicken broth, but no worries. I just always keep bouillon cubes on hand, and in a pinch, You can use one bouillon cube with a cup of water, and voila, you have an acceptable substitute for chicken broth. So that's what I'm doing because I wanted to get this made and I did not want to go out to the grocery store. I've already measured out my water. The recipe calls for 6 cups of chicken broth, but I'm doubling the recipe because the recipe also called for only 1 pound of Great Northern beans. And I just think, wow, if you're gonna go to the trouble to make 1 batch, why not double it? It freezes well, you're good to go. So I have already taken the little foil off of my bouillon cubes. So I've got 12 bouillon cubes here to accommodate my 12 cups of water. Normally if I'm gonna use that, I would add some boiling water, but I'm gonna get this stuff boiling anyway, so I just throw those bouillon cubes in there, good to go. Already measured out the water, that's in there. The recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. Since I'm doubling the recipe, I'm putting in 4. Hope that isn't going to confuse you. When you get ready to make it, you're going to want to be sure and look at my recipe that I'll download. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the garlic powder in here. I have the rest of my ingredients out here, but some of this gets added at the end. So for right now, we've soaked the beans. I'm combining the beans, the broth, the garlic powder, and the onions. Can't forget the onions. So it calls for 1 onion for 1 serving of the recipe or 1 preparation. I'm doubling it, so I have 2 onions already chopped and in here, good to go. So I'm just gonna rake those right in there out of my bowl, and we are ready to go. The beans were already soaked and they were soft, so I've added again the chicken broth that I created by using water and a bouillon cube. I've added the garlic powder, I've added the onions. Now I chopped my onions using my handy dandy Pampered Chef manual food chopper. I love this. That's been easy to do. I tend to tear up a lot with onions, so I really like being able to do that. So I chop those up ahead of time. I'm gonna go ahead and get this on to boil. The recipe calls to bring it to a boil, then reduce the heat and simmer it until the beans are really good and soft, and that takes about 3 hours. I just watch it and keep stirring it, and it just will kind of thicken up a little bit, and then we'll go back later and add the remaining ingredients. I'll tell you what those are now, just so if you want to be thinking about adding that recipe, but again, we'll add the link. The other things that get added at the end are a tablespoon of oil, a can of green chilies, 1.5 tablespoons of oregano, and 2 teaspoons of cumin. The other thing it calls for are 4 cups of diced cooked chicken breast. So I have some chicken breast ready in the freezer. It's already been cooked, baked and diced. I seasoned it just a little bit, so that'll be ready to go. So at the end, after my beans are nice and soft and all those flavors are cooking, I'll just sort of throw all that in there and give it a good stir. Nothing like soup to just sort of permeate the whole household. When soup is cooking, it just seems to make everything smell so good. It just entices the family to come in. If it's cold outside, nothing better than coming in the house in January and smelling that delicious soup simmering. I will say this, it does seem like for me that soup is always better the next day. It just seems to thicken up a little bit as it sits in the refrigerator or something, I don't know. But I almost enjoy soup better the second day out. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video now. I'm gonna get my beans to cooking and softening and cooking up, and then we'll come back and throw in those remaining ingredients so you can see how easy it is to make white chili at your house. Well, I'm back, and more importantly, my beans are all soft. Remember we put them in there with the water, with the bouillon cubes to make the broth. All the onion is cooked down, the beans have gotten nice and soft. It smells delicious. You can probably see the steam coming off of my pot. I brought this whole concoction to a good rolling boil, and then I turned it down and let it simmer probably about an hour and a half or so. I just keep an eye on it, keep stirring it, keep enjoying the smell, add a little water if it looks like it needs it. Didn't have to very much this time. So my beans are ready, and it is a simple process from here on out. I'm just gonna refer to my recipe and add the remaining ingredients. It calls for now a tablespoon of oil. I like to use olive oil when I cook. Now I will remind you again that because I'm doubling the recipe, it calls for 1 tablespoon of oil, but I'm gonna go ahead and put in 2 because I am doubling the recipe. Next up is my 2 4-ounce cans of diced green chilies. So I'm gonna dump these in here. So this is indeed a 4-ounce can, and I just realized I only grabbed 2 of these. I'm gonna have to put in 2 more since I am doubling the recipe. So I've got 1 and I've got 2, and before I serve it to my family, I'll go off camera when I finish recording today and grab 2 more of those off of my pantry to put in. So because it does call for 2 cans for 1 recipe, but again, I'm doubling the recipe. So I've got my green chilies in there. Next up, 1.5 tablespoons of oregano. I went ahead and measured this out, and again, doubling the recipe, so I'm putting in 3 tablespoons of oregano. And then cumin. You never want to leave this out. Cumin is more familiar now than it was maybe early in the 90s when I started making this recipe. We have lots of great Eastern recipes that use cumin, Indian food, and it is really, I think, the key ingredient, maybe as well as the green chilies, that just make this recipe so incredibly yummy. So there's the cumin and the green chilies. The last thing is just to drop in all the chicken. So I have already prepared all of my chicken. I've got that all diced up. It's ready to drop in. And there you go. So if I have some chicken I need to cook up, this is a great way to use up some of that chicken. So I'm just going to stir all this together. It looks wonderful. It's just a meaty dish. It's a delicious dish with the beans. It's healthy for us. It looks wonderful. I think I have everything in there now. The recipe calls for us just to go ahead now, as we've added all those remaining ingredients, let it simmer for another 30 or 40 minutes, but everything is really cooked and it's ready to go. But just letting it simmer lets all those flavors kind of permeate, especially those spices sort of work their way in. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a ladle and dish up some of this so you can see it in my clear little storage bowl. I just want you to see how yummy looking this is with the chicken and the green chilies. Again, I'm gonna simmer it for a little bit longer, but hopefully you can get a look at that. It is nutritious, it is delicious, it is low cal, low fat, and low budget really. Anytime we cook with beans, just a great meal to serve up to your family in the winter time. When you serve it, I like to eat it just plain as it is, but if you want to add a little more flair to it, since it is white chili, shred some cheddar cheese or Monterey Jack cheese. You can crunch up some tortilla chips, throw in a dollop of sour cream. Of course, all that adds more calories, but maybe your family would enjoy it a little bit more. So, thanks so much for watching Cross My Heart Ministry. Thanks for tuning in for this edition of Martha Monday. If you decide you'd like to try my white chili recipe, I'm going to post the link to that below. And leave us a note and let us know what your favorite January recipe is to make when you want everyone to feel nurtured and loved on and home, at home in the winter time. What's your favorite winter meal to serve to your family? Again, happy soup making and stay warm out there. Until next week, I'm Lauren McFarland and I appreciate you stopping by. If you're a regular subscriber, I just want to say thank you. If you haven't yet and you've enjoyed today's video, go ahead and click the big red subscribe button. That way you won't miss anything. We'll send you an email when we post a new video. Thanks for watching and stay tuned this coming Friday for our next parables teaching in the study that we're teaching in Bible study this spring, this winter and spring. Thanks so much again and blessings on your week, friends.